In this video, we'll answer the question, how can you avoid getting arrested after being stopped for driving while intoxicated? The answer to that question is coming right up. Welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Gustitis, and this is Gustitislaw. At Gustitislaw, we provide hope to people by imparting knowledge to them about the criminal justice system and about charges that they may be facing personally. If you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy the content that you listen to on this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. So let's answer the question. How do you avoid getting arrested after being stopped for DWI? Well, to be frank, if you've been out drinking, spend some time at some local bars, if your driving behavior is poor, if the officer sees you and stops you and smells alcohol on your breath, frankly, it's just a matter of time before you get arrested and you're going to jail. If that's the case, if an arrest is really inevitable, what's the most important thing that you can do? Well, the most important thing that you can do is to protect yourself, is to avoid giving the police officer evidence that they can use against you in court. You know, from the moment that the police officer watches you swerve driving down the highway late at night, coming from a bar district in your local community, that police officer is going to be dialed in to a DWI investigation. From the moment that he stops you, makes contact with you, smells alcohol on your breath, and possibly sees that your eyes are red and glassy, believe me, you're going to jail no matter what you do. Now remember, the only thing that you are required to do at a traffic stop is to provide the police officer your driver's license and your proof of insurance. You are not required to answer police officer questions. You are not required to perform sobriety tests. You are not required to submit to any other aspect of the police officer's investigation at the time. If you do decide to answer the officer's questions, he's going to be listening to whether you're slurring your words. He's going to be listening for any type of inconsistent answers that you may give to his questions. In fact, part of what he's trying to do is to confuse you with what the police call divided attention tasks. From the moment that the officer starts asking you questions, he's trying to get you to incriminate yourself. He'll ask you how many drinks you had that night. Where were you? When did you begin drinking? When did you stop drinking? Again, all of these statements that you make to the police officer as you're sitting behind the wheel of your car can be used against you in court. Well, after that part of the investigation, that's called the personal contact phase of the investigation, the officer will typically then ask you to perform some standardized field sobriety tests. Now remember, you are not required to submit to those sobriety tests either. If you do decide to submit to them, and if you perform poorly on the test, you've now given the officer even more evidence to use against you in court. So that's another thing that you need to consider out in the field, in a high-stress situation, what you're going to decide to do and provide to the officer at that time. At this point of the investigation, remember this: the police officer's end game is to arrest you, so he can then ask you for a sample of your breath or your blood. Most states have what are called either implied consent laws or express consent laws, which give the police the authority to ask you for a sample after you are arrested for DWI. Now, the real tricky question is whether or not you should submit. If you are asked by the police to provide a sample and you refuse, in many states, the officer can simply apply for a search warrant from a local judge to get a sample of your blood anyway. So now they have a sample of your blood, and they have your refusal to use against you in court. Now, most experienced DWI defense lawyers would much rather defend a breath test case than a blood test case. Simply, breath testing is much more scientifically vulnerable and can be more easily attacked in court. But in any case, it's a difficult, tricky decision. Do you submit to a test? What test do you submit to? Are they going to get a search warrant for your blood anyway? Those are questions that you need to think about ahead of time. If you're going to go out drinking and spend some time with friends consuming alcohol on a late Friday or Saturday night. Obviously, the best way to avoid this situation in the first place is to not drink and drive. If you're going to go out and have a good time with some friends, spend some time at a local bar, shooting pool, and visiting, then call an Uber to take you home. Have some kind of pre-arranged designated driver to take you home to keep you safe. You might consider calling a taxi, or sometimes you might even have to walk home. But nonetheless, avoid the situation in the first place. These are highly stressful situations. There's no easy answer at all about what to do in any particular case. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to my channel, Gustitislaw. You can also visit my website at www.gustitislaw.com. There you can read about blog posts that I have written and that describe my law practice over the years. You can download my free book on defending DWIs, or you can sign up for my free quarterly newsletter. I thank you for visiting. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Thanks for watching.